Hi, my name is Mariah Hill, and I am a psychologist here at Counseling and Psychological Services. And I'm also diversity coordinator, and so sometimes I work with the Office of International Programs with students either that are coming here from abroad or, like you all, are going to be traveling abroad. So I'm just here to talk to you about some mental health considerations in preparation for your travel and study abroad experience. So the first thing is that usually when you study abroad and are traveling overseas, it's a very exciting time. And with that though, you're going to be going to a place that could be quite different from here. So it's not uncommon for there to be some adjustment issues that may come up while you're studying abroad. And this may include things like feelings of anxiety, sadness, loneliness, homesickness, difficulty sleeping, or just feeling overwhelmed with all of those differences and changes. So that, again, that's normal. It's not necessarily something to be concerned about, but it can be helpful to remember when you're abroad. At times, though, some students may experience these things more intensely or for longer durations. And so those adjustment issues can become more problematic. Some of the things to keep in mind that might signal that there's a problem is if these kinds of adjustment issues keep you from exploring or engaging, interfere with your functioning, or if they last longer than more than a few weeks. In those instances, then it may signal a need for further support or seeking of services. So some warning signs to keep in mind. Again, this is more if they endure for longer periods of time or feel more intense. Any kind of sleep or appetite changes, not getting out of bed, any kind of heavy drug or alcohol use, social withdrawal or really kind of retreating and isolating yourself from others, not attending class, or noticing that there's just a decrease in your performance, depression, anxiety, and certainly if there are any kinds of suicidal thoughts, then you want to reach out to somebody sooner rather than later. So if these kinds of things come up, and again, they're lasting for quite some time, you want to talk with the study abroad people there. You may email the Office of International Programs here at MSU, but talk to somebody. Try not to engage in that isolation and not reach out. You won't be sent home. Sometimes students have those concerns, and so they tend to keep those things to themselves. But we want you to have the support while you're abroad that you need. We at CPS would also be happy to meet with you before or after you study abroad. But just to keep in mind, because of ethical guidelines, we cannot provide counseling to students while they are abroad. If you're dealing with mental health issues presently, they're not likely to disappear while you're studying abroad, and they may actually intensify due to language barriers, culture shock, homesickness, those kinds of things. So if you've dealt with depression, anxiety, or other mental health concerns in the past, the stresses that come with traveling and living in another culture could bring a return of those symptoms. So you might want to seek counseling services while you're there just to make a connection. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to see somebody on a weekly basis, but it could be helpful to have that connection and maybe even check in periodically. So it can be helpful to seek these resources ahead of time. Even if you don't know, even if you don't need them, it's better to know them and to know where to access them ahead of time rather than waiting until you're actually in crisis or in a heightened distress experience. Let's see. If you have international health insurance, you may research your mental health benefits and the referral information there. And in addition to mental health professionals, you might also just consider who may be helpful sources of support while you're abroad. So it doesn't always mean that the intervention has to lead to talking to a professional. It could be talking to your friends, talking to family members, talking to peers that you meet while you're studying abroad, but thinking about who can be support people. Individual counseling services are available here at Counseling and Psychological Services. So if you're a student that's taking at least 6 credits, you have up to 10 individual counseling sessions available to you that are free and confidential. If you're currently seeing a therapist here at CPS, or if you're seeing a therapist in the community, I would really encourage you to touch base and let them know that you're going to be studying abroad. And you may spend some time in therapy just being planful about your time abroad as it relates to your mental health and what would be helpful in taking care of yourself. Let's see. If you're not a client at CPS, you can always call and set up an appointment. We're located at 211 Swingle. We're above Student Health Services connected to the sub. And you can stop by and set up an appointment, or you can also call us. Our number is 994-4531. And then just some basic self-care considerations. So even if you don't have a history of mental health issues, or those things don't pop up while you're abroad, one of the things to consider in terms of maintaining that is how you take care of yourself while abroad. So if there are self-care or ways that you take care of yourself, activities that you engage in, if those translate abroad, you might look at maintaining those. So that could be things like journaling, exercising, spending time with friends. If you usually talk to support people, whether that's friends or family, you might look into doing that, via Skype or something like that, or FaceTime while you're abroad. And then the other thing to consider is try not to make any big life changes while you're studying abroad. Sometimes people, study abroad and then they think, oh, this is a great time to just reinvent myself and to make all of these new changes. And you're going to have potentially a lot of changes anyway, and so you don't want to add more stress than you need to. And so sometimes just maintaining some of those familiar routines can be important, and those big life changes, aside from the study abroad experience, might be better served once you're back home. So if you have any concerns about these issues, again, you can check in with us at CPS before you go for a consultation. You don't necessarily even have to do ongoing therapy. If you just want to come in for 1 or 2 sessions to consult and talk about things, we're happy to do that. We're also available, again, to meet with you when you return. Sometimes students may struggle with the transitions back to their home culture. So just to keep in mind that those services are available to you when you return as well, as long as you're an enrolled student. If you return early due to mental health or medical issues, and you're not an enrolled student, you wouldn't qualify for services, but we would be happy to meet with you and help facilitate those services in the community to help you with that. And I think that that's it. So I wish you well. I hope you all have a great time abroad.